4 toxic habits that make people disrespect you. Except you shouldn't care about the respect you get or don't get from others. You need to be able to respect yourself. That is what the Stoics preached, and that is all. It doesn't mean you shouldn't care about what happens because of these toxic habits or what you're actually doing when you're knee-deep in your hopeless performance. That is why today we are looking at the toxic habits of gossiping, being unreliable, interrupting others, and complaining constantly. And not just looking, but gaining mindfulness needed to get rid of them, the Stoic way. You should be able to care about, no, you must care about inconveniencing others, making them feel bad, and messing up your dynamic with them. After all, people deserve better, just like you deserve better. People need inner peace, just as you need inner peace. The Stoic way is important because it doesn't aim to magically make your problems go away. Rather, it helps you cope with them, learn from them to handle them better next time, or not let them happen in the first place. That's how things are handled in the real world. But most don't make it as Stoics. They opt out soon as they opt in, or they opt into easier advice that masks itself as Stoic advice. But you're not them. You're here to stay. You already know the Stoic way is the difficult way, don't you? I know you do. Now come along. We've got lots to uncover. But before that, if you appreciate what we are doing here, do us a simple free favor by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. And do watch the video till the end. That'll help all of us out. Sign 1. Being unreliable. Let's talk about reliability, a virtue that runs deep in Stoic principles but is often overlooked in today's world. Being unreliable isn't just a bad habit, it's another crack in the foundation of your character. And let me be clear, this isn't about how others perceive you or whether they lose respect for you, though that matters, but only to the extent that it doesn't disrupt your inner peace or theirs. No, the deeper issue is that unreliability doesn't align with the core values of Stoic philosophy: integrity, self-discipline, and living in accordance with reason and virtue. The Stoics, particularly Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, were adamant about the importance of aligning actions with words. If you say you'll do something and fail to follow through, you're living out of sync with your values. Your word becomes meaningless, not just to others, but to yourself. One memory stands out, and it taught me more about reliability than any lecture or book ever could. Years ago, I volunteered to help an elderly neighbor, Mr. Conrad Shepherd, with his garden. He was a quiet, dignified man who had trouble bending and lifting, and I promised to come by on a Saturday morning to help clear out the weeds. I meant it, I really did. But when Saturday came, I was tired from a late Friday night and decided to sleep in. I figured I could go later or maybe just skip it. How much did it matter, really? It mattered a great deal, as it turned out. The next time I saw Mr. Conrad, he simply said, "I managed without you." His words weren't angry, but they were heavy with disappointment. I'd failed to show up when I said I would, and in doing so, I'd failed to live up to my own standards. Yes, you heard that right. My standards, not other people's. It wasn't just about Mr. Conrad's garden, it was about my integrity. From that day, I started to realize that every promise I make is a reflection of my character. To break a promise, no matter how small, is to chip away at the person I aspire to be. The lesson deepened years later in a professional setting. I was part of a small team working on a critical project. One of my responsibilities was to prepare a report that our manager needed for a presentation. I'd underestimated how much time it would take and ended up submitting it late, leaving my manager scrambling at the last minute. She didn't yell or berate me, she simply said, "I need to know I can count on you." That stung because I knew I'd let the team down. My failure wasn't about the missed deadline or the disrespect I could have easily perceived. It was about the trust I'd broken. Here's the Stoic truth. Reliability isn't just about what you do. It's about who you are. To be reliable is to honor your word, respect others' time, and act with discipline and foresight. The Stoics offer a perspective that emphasizes self-awareness and deliberate action. If you can't follow through on your commitments, how can you claim to be in control of yourself? Reliability is, at its heart, a demonstration of mastery over your impulses, distractions, and excuses. So, how do you cultivate reliability? First, be honest with yourself about what you can and can't do. Don't overcommit in an effort to please others or boost your ego. The Stoics teach us to act according to reason, which means understanding your limitations and setting realistic expectations. Second, treat every commitment, no matter how small, as a sacred promise. If you've said you'll do something, do it. And if circumstances change and you genuinely can't follow through, communicate early and clearly. Letting someone know in advance that you can't meet a commitment is far better than leaving them in the lurch. Finally, reflect on the deeper purpose behind reliability. It's not just about meeting deadlines or showing up on time. It's about cultivating trust and integrity. When people know they can rely on you, you build bonds and connections. And when you're reliable, you strengthen your own sense of self-worth because you know you're living in alignment with your values. Stoicism reminds us that our actions shape our character. Every time you follow through on a promise, you reinforce the kind of person you want to be. And every time you fail to show up, you weaken that foundation. So choose reliability, not because it makes others respect you, but because it aligns with the virtues of courage, discipline, and justice that define the Stoic path. Sign 2. Gossiping. Let's have a candid talk about gossip, shall we? It's a habit that's far more destructive than most people realize, and worse, it's fundamentally at odds with Stoic principles and values. The Stoics, with their relentless focus on self-mastery and virtuous living, would have no patience for the petty indulgence of gossip. It's not about protecting your reputation or just avoiding awkward fallout. It's about aligning your words and actions with your highest self. Gossip is a betrayal, not only of others, but of your commitment to integrity. Epictetus put it bluntly: keep silence for the most part and speak only when you must, and then briefly. Gossip violates this wisdom in every way. It wastes time, spreads negativity, and draws your attention away from what truly matters, your own growth and virtue. Worse, it's often fueled by envy, insecurity, or the need for approval and respect. All things the Stoics teach us to rise above. The Stoics offer a perspective that cuts to the heart of why gossip is so corrosive. It's a sign that you're focusing on others instead of yourself. Gossip is easy. It's lazy. It requires no discipline, no self-reflection. But meaningful conversations, discussions that build trust, inspire growth, and encourage virtue, those take effort, and they're worth it. Here's the truth. When you gossip, you diminish yourself. You reveal a lack of respect, not only for others, but for your own character. The Stoics believed in the power of words to either uplift or degrade. Gossip, by its very nature, degrades. It erodes relationships, undermines trust, and scatters your focus. And let's not forget, the person who gossips to you today is likely gossiping about you tomorrow. Instead, choose the path of silence when faced with the temptation to gossip. Not a silence born of cowardice or fear, or one meant to keep your respect intact even if it keeps you tongue-tied, but one rooted in respect, discipline, and virtue. Reflect on this. Would you rather be known as someone who uplifts or someone who tears down? The answer, if you're walking the Stoic path, is clear. So next time the urge to gossip arises, pause. Take a moment to consider whether your words are necessary, helpful, or aligned with your values. If they're not, let them go. Use that energy to focus on your own growth, to build meaningful relationships, and to uphold the integrity that Stoicism reminds us is central to a good life. The respect you need to earn is your own, not that of others. So, protect others and elevate yourself. Let gossip go. Sign 3. Interrupting others. Interrupting others. It's a habit that might seem harmless at first glance, but runs much deeper than mere discourtesy. It doesn't just irritate or alienate the person you're cutting off. It violates the core Stoic principles and values that guide us toward virtue and self-mastery. When you interrupt someone, you're essentially saying, "What I have to say matters more than what you're saying." It's a statement of impatience, arrogance, and a lack of discipline, none of which align with the ideals of Stoicism. The Stoics teach us that discipline and respect for others should govern our interactions. Zeno, the founder of Stoicism, reminds us, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." To interrupt is to disregard this wisdom, placing impulse above reason. It's a failure to value the present moment, the moment when another person is speaking their truth, sharing their perspective. Interrupting isn't just about cutting off words. It's about cutting off the person behind them. It shows that we're not fully present, that we're more concerned with what we want to say than with truly understanding the other person. And from a Stoic perspective, it's a failure of virtue. To interrupt is to act impulsively, to put your own desires above the harmony of the conversation. It's a subtle form of arrogance, a belief that your voice deserves precedence over another's. So, how do you break this habit? The answer lies in Stoic mindfulness and self-awareness. When you feel the urge to interrupt, pause. Take a moment to remind yourself that listening is an act of respect, an act of self-discipline. Practice active listening, not just hearing the words, but truly understanding the thoughts and emotions behind them. Ask yourself, is my interruption necessary, or am I just impatient? I've found it helpful to embrace silence as a tool. Silence isn't empty. It's a space for reflection, a space that allows others to fully express themselves. In conversations, make it your goal to wait for the other person to finish speaking, not just out of politeness, but because you value their perspective. And when it's your turn to respond, take a moment to reflect before you speak. This practice not only curbs interruptions, but also leads to more thoughtful, meaningful dialogue. It is the mark of an educated mind to entertain a thought without accepting it. This includes entertaining another's words without rushing to inject your own. Listening fully is an act of humility and wisdom, and it aligns you with the virtues of patience, respect, and understanding. Breaking the habit of interrupting isn't about improving relationships or earning respect. It's about embodying the Stoic virtues that lead to a harmonious, virtuous life. It's about learning to value others' voices as much as your own and practicing the self-restraint that allows you to live in alignment with your principles. So the next time you feel the impulse to interrupt, pause, reflect, and choose silence. In doing so, you honor not just the person speaking, but the best version of yourself. Sign 4. Complaining. Let's talk about complaining, not the occasional venting of frustration, but the persistent, habitual kind that takes root and spreads negativity like a weed. On the surface, complaining may seem harmless, maybe even cathartic, but when you look deeper, you'll see how it chips away at your peace, your relationships, and your integrity. And most importantly, it's a habit that stands in stark opposition to Stoic principles and values. To complain is to focus on what's wrong without seeking to make it right. It's to surrender your power to external circumstances, obsessing over what you can't control instead of working on what you can. The Stoics, particularly Epictetus, were clear on this. We suffer not from events in our lives, but from our judgment about them. Complaining doesn't change those events. It only amplifies your suffering. The Stoics offer a perspective that cuts through the noise of our complaints. Life is what it is. You don't control the traffic, the boss, or the weather. What you control is your response. And complaining, my friend, is a response rooted in weakness, not strength. Losing the habit of complaining wasn't just about being more positive. It was about aligning myself with Stoic virtues, patience, resilience, and gratitude. I started small, catching myself whenever I felt the urge to complain. Instead of vocalizing the negative, I practiced reframing. If I was stuck in traffic, I used the time to listen to an audiobook. If a task at work was frustrating, I reminded myself it was an opportunity to improve my patience or find a solution. Another shift was practicing gratitude. Instead of focusing on what annoyed me, I deliberately acknowledged what was going well. I started ending each day by writing down 3 things I was grateful for, simple things, like a good cup of coffee or a productive meeting. Over time, my perspective shifted. I realized how much energy I had wasted on complaining, energy that could be used to improve my circumstances or enjoy the moment. The results were profound. My relationships improved. I stopped draining energy from every room I entered. At work, I became someone who focused on solutions instead of problems, and most importantly, I felt a sense of inner peace. By focusing on what I could control and letting go of the rest, I aligned my actions with my values, and that alignment changed everything. The Stoics remind us that complaining is not just a bad habit, it's a sign of misplaced focus. When you complain, you fixate on what's wrong instead of working to make it right. You allow external circumstances to dominate your inner world, creating a cycle of negativity that benefits no one. By letting go of complaints, you reclaim your power. You become someone who acts with purpose, who lives with integrity, and who embodies the virtues that make life meaningful. So the next time you catch yourself complaining, pause, reflect. Ask yourself, is this helping? Is this who I want to be? Choose instead to focus on what you can control. Embrace gratitude, seek solutions, and let go of what you cannot change. That, my friend, is the Stoic way. And it isn't about transforming how others see you, but how you see yourself. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear this. Let's strive to live better, more respectful lives. Until next time, stay strong and stay stoic.